Every person in that diner would later swear the story started with the stranger who fell through the door. They were wrong. This story did not start with the woman bleeding on the floor. It did not start with the man in the corner booth. It started with a girl no one had ever bothered to look at. Twice a girl who had been invisible for so long she had almost forgotten she was real. And on the night everything changed, she was standing behind a counter in a roadside diner in the middle of the Nevada desert, refilling a coffee pot she had already refilled 11 times, watching the rain destroy the world outside the window, and thinking about absolutely nothing. Because thinking about nothing was the only skill she had ever truly mastered. Her name was Sadie Monroe. She was 23 years old. She had blonde hair that she kept pulled back in a rubber band she had bought at a gas station 3 towns ago. She had green eyes that most people never noticed because most people never looked at her long enough to notice anything. She was 5'4" and weighed 112 pounds because food cost money, and money was something Sadie Monroe had an extremely limited relationship with. She worked the night shift at May's Desert Stop, a diner that sat on the shoulder of Route 14, like something the desert had tried to swallow and given up on. The building was old. The linoleum was older. The coffee machine behind the counter made a sound like a dying animal every 40 minutes. And Sadie had learned to time her movements around it the way sailors learn to time their movements around waves. You did not fight the machine, you worked with it. You poured when it let you pour, and you waited when it told you to wait, and you did not complain because complaining required an audience, and Sadie Monroe did not have one. She had been working at May's for 11 months. Before that, she had worked at a gas station in Tonopah. Before that, a laundromat in Hawthorne. Before that, a string of jobs in a string of towns that blurred together like highway lines at night, each one lasting just long enough for something to go wrong or for Sadie to realize that nothing was going to go right and it was time to move again. She had been in the foster care system from the age of 7 when her mother left and did not come back. Not died, not went to prison, left, walked out the front door on a Tuesday morning, and never came home. Sadie had waited 3 days before the neighbor called someone, and someone called someone else, and the machinery of the state began its slow, indifferent work. She had been in 6 homes by the time she was 12. She had learned things in those homes that no child should have to learn, things about silence and survival, and the mathematics of making yourself small enough that the wrong kind of attention passed over you, like weather. She had aged out of the system at 18 with a garbage bag containing her clothes and a check for $700 that was supposed to represent the state of Nevada's investment in her future. She had been on her own for 5 years. 5 years of diners and gas stations and motel rooms she could not quite afford, and nights sleeping in her van when she could not afford them at all. The van was a 2004 Dodge Caravan with 237,000 miles on it and a sliding door that only opened from the outside. She had bought it for $900 from a man in Fallon who told her the transmission was solid and the engine had life left in it. Both of those things had been lies, but Sadie had learned very early that the truth was a luxury item and she was not a luxury person. The van was parked behind May's Diner in the same spot it had been parked for 11 months. May knew Sadie lived in it. May had never said a word about it. May had never offered her a room or a couch or a solution because May understood something about dignity that most people who tried to help never figured out. You do not fix a person by telling them they are broken. You fix a person by treating them like they are already whole and waiting for them to believe it. May Hollister was 73 years old. She had run the diner for 31 years since her husband Frank had died of a heart attack while changing a tire in the parking lot, which May always said was exactly how Frank would have wanted to go, doing something useful and not making a fuss about it. May was 5'2" and had white hair. She kept under a bandana and the kind of backbone that develops in women who spend 3 decades standing on their feet, 12 hours a day in a building they own outright and answering to nobody. May had 4 rules for the diner. You could sit as long as you wanted. You could pay when you could. You did not cause trouble. And you did not ask Rex Callahan about the second plate. Rex Callahan. Sadie had been watching him every Friday night for 11 months, and she still did not understand him. Nobody did. Nobody tried. Rex Callahan was the kind of man who occupied space in a way that made the space around him rearrange itself. He was 6'4" and built like something forged rather than born. His hands were the size of catcher's mitts. His forearms were covered in tattoos that told stories in a language most people could not read, and the rest did not want to. His beard had gone mostly gray. His face carried deep lines that came not from age, but from years of choices that left marks. Cold blue eyes that never seemed to move, even when he was looking directly at you. The leather vest he wore had a patch on the back. Iron Vultures, MC, Nevada. President. He had led the Iron Vultures for 19 years. Before that, he had ridden with 3 other clubs. He had been arrested 8 times, convicted twice, and had done a combined 6 years in 2 different Nevada state prisons. His reputation was not a rumor or an exaggeration. People in this part of the desert genuinely believed he was capable of things that most men only saw in nightmares. And yet every Friday night he walked into May's Desert Stop at 8 o'clock sharp and sat in the same corner booth and ordered the same 2 meals. Chicken fried steak with mashed potatoes and gravy. Twice. Same booth, same order, same time. He ate 1 plate. The second plate sat untouched across from him until May cleared it away at the end of the night. Nobody asked. Sadie had watched this ritual 50 times. She had watched him eat alone and stare at that second plate with an expression she could not name, but recognized in the way that people who carry heavy things recognize the weight in someone else. She had never spoken to him beyond the words required by her job. Coffee, sir? Refill, sir. Can I clear this for you, sir? He had never spoken to her beyond a nod or a single word. Yes. No. Thanks. And yet Sadie watched him. Not because she was curious in the way that the truckers were curious, the way they had whispered about him and stole glances and kept their backs to the wall. Sadie watched him because she recognized something. She had spent her entire life learning to read people. In foster care, you learned to read a room the way a deer reads a clearing. You learned which adults were safe and which were not. You learned what a closed fist looked like before it became a closed fist. You learned what anger sounded like 3 drinks before it became dangerous. You learned to watch eyes and hands and the set of a jaw and the way a person breathed when they were deciding something. Sadie had become extraordinary at this. She did not think of it as a skill. She thought of it as the tax she paid for surviving. But it meant that she saw things other people missed. She saw the trucker at the counter who was drinking too fast and getting too loud and was going to be a problem in about 30 minutes. She saw the old couple in the far booth who were not talking to each other and had not been talking to each other for a very long time. She saw May's left knee bothering her again by the way she shifted her weight every time she turned from the grill. And she saw Rex Callahan sitting in his corner booth looking at an untouched plate of food, with something in his eyes that was not hunger and was not sadness and was not anger, but was something she had felt so many times herself that she almost said the word out loud once. Grief. Not the grief of losing someone, the grief of having failed someone, the grief of knowing you were in a position to do something and you did not do it, and the person you did not do it for is gone, and you cannot go back. Sadie knew that grief. She carried her own version of it. She carried it in the memory of a foster sister named Becca, who had been in the same home as Sadie when Sadie was 14. Becca was 12. Becca was afraid of the man who ran the home. Sadie was afraid too. But Sadie was older, and Sadie knew the signs, and Sadie could have said something to someone, and she did not, because she was afraid that saying something would mean being moved again, and being moved again meant losing the only bed she had. So she stayed silent. And Becca stayed silent. And by the time someone finally said something, it was not Becca, and it was too late. Sadie did not think about Becca often. She had built very effective walls around that room in her memory. But every Friday night when she watched Rex Callahan stare at that untouched plate, the walls thinned. That Friday in October was the worst storm to hit the Nevada desert in over a decade. Sadie had watched it build all afternoon from the diner window, the sky turning the color of a bruise, the wind picking up until the highway signs were vibrating, the first drops hitting the parking lot like bullets. By 7 o'clock, the rain was a solid wall. By 8 o'clock, the world outside the window had disappeared into water and darkness and the occasional flash of lightning that turned the desert white for 1 second before plunging it back into nothing. May had sent Sandra the day waitress home early. That left Sadie running the floor alone, which she had done many times and did not mind, because running the floor alone meant fewer people to navigate and fewer conversations to have and more time to exist in the quiet that was her natural habitat. 3 truckers were at the counter, stuck waiting for the storm to pass, before getting back on the highway. One of them was drinking too much coffee and talking too loud about something political that Sadie tuned out immediately. The other 2 were quiet in the way that experienced road drivers are quiet during bad weather, conserving their energy for the drive ahead. An old couple sat in the far booth, nursing decaf, afraid to drive in the lightning. The woman kept looking at the window, and the man kept patting her hand, and neither of them was reassuring the other, because they were both afraid and pretending not to be. And Rex was in his corner, 8 o'clock sharp, 2 plates, 1 touched, 1 not. The jukebox was playing something old and country that Sadie did not recognize. The coffee machine made it sound, and Sadie moved to it automatically and refilled the pot, and set it back and wiped the counter, and checked the truckers, and checked the old couple, and checked Rex, and everything was the way it always was. Until it was not. The door opened at 8:47. Not from the wind, though the wind was bad enough to rattle every window in the building. The door opened because a woman hit it with both hands and fell through it. Sadie saw her before anyone else did. She was already moving toward the door when the woman came through it because Sadie had been watching the parking lot the way she always watched things, and she had seen the headlights cut across the gravel 3 seconds before the door opened. Headlights that were not a truck and not a regular car, but something moving fast and stopping hard. The woman was on the floor. She had gone down the moment she crossed the threshold, like her legs had been carrying her on pure will, and the will had run out the instant she reached something that looked like safety. She was maybe 34, 35, dark blonde hair plastered to her face, a jacket pulled tight around her body soaked through, and her face. Sadie stopped. She was 3 feet from the woman, and she stopped because she recognized what she was looking at. Not the woman specifically. Sadie had never seen her before. But the face. Sadie recognized the face. The swollen lip that was fresh, less than an hour old. The bruise along the jaw that was older yellow-green, a week, maybe 2. The way the woman held her right arm slightly away from her body, protecting a shoulder that had been hurt recently. And the eyes. Wide and moving, scanning the room in quick, short arcs, hunting for what she already knew was coming, because she had spent years learning what his opening moves looked like. Sadie knew that face. She had seen it in foster homes. She had seen it on women in shelters. She had seen a version of it in her own mirror when she was 15, and the man who ran her 4th foster home had decided she was old enough for the kind of attention that nobody talked about. She dropped to her knees beside the woman. The woman flinched. Her whole body pulled away from Sadie the way a person pulls away from a flame. Automatic, violent, the reflex of someone who has learned that hands reaching toward her usually mean pain. Sadie held both her own hands up, palms out, the universal gesture of, I am not going to hurt you, that Sadie had learned to make before she learned to drive. Easy, Sadie said. Her voice was quiet. She kept it quiet on purpose because loud voices were triggers, and Sadie knew that. You are inside now. You are at May's Diner on Route 14. Can you tell me your name? The woman looked at her. Looked past her at the diner, at the truckers, at the old couple at Rex. Her eyes settled on Rex for a moment, and something crossed her face that was too fast for Sadie to read. Then she looked back at Sadie. Rachel, she whispered. Rachel Steele. May was there now, coming around the counter with a towel and a glass of water, and an expression of absolute determined calm that could have stopped a freight train. Lord have mercy, honey, May said. Get her up. Get her to the booth. Sadie helped Rachel to her feet. Rachel weighed almost nothing against her. She was thin in a way that was not natural, the thinness of someone who had been living on adrenaline and fear instead of food. Sadie guided her to the nearest booth, the one behind the counter, where the kitchen wall provided a barrier from the rest of the room. Rachel sat down, and her hands went flat on the table, and she pressed them there like she was trying to hold herself to the surface of the earth. The towel May had brought sat untouched beside her. The water sat untouched. She was staring at the table with an intensity that Sadie recognized. She was trying not to cry. Not because she was strong, but because she had learned that crying made things worse. That tears attracted attention, and attention attracted consequences. You are safe here, Sadie said. She sat down across from Rachel in the booth. She said it again. You are safe. Nobody is going to hurt you here. Rachel looked up at her, and what Sadie saw in her eyes was not belief. It was the opposite. It was the face of a woman who had been told she was safe before and discovered that safety was a door that could be opened from the outside by anyone with enough force. He is coming, Rachel said. Her voice was barely a sound. That is all she said. 2 words. He is coming. Sadie felt something move through her chest. Cold. Quick. A recognition that arrived in her body before her mind caught up. Who is coming? Sadie said. Rachel shook her head. She opened the jacket she had been clutching around herself, and Sadie saw the bag underneath, a canvas bag, small, the kind you buy at a grocery store. Rachel pulled it open, and inside were documents, a manila envelope, papers, a passport, birth certificate, social security card, everything a person grabs when they are leaving a place they are never coming back to. I need to get to Millerton, Rachel said. There is a shelter. Someone told me about it. I was driving, but my car. She stopped. Her hands were shaking so badly the papers rattled against each other. My car broke down 8 miles east. I walked. She looked at Sadie. I walked 8 miles in this. 8 miles in this storm. Sadie looked at Rachel's shoes. Flats. Thin soled. Soaked through. Her feet must have been destroyed. 8 miles of desert road in a storm that had turned the shoulder into a river. How long, Sadie said. Not how long had she been walking. Rachel understood the real question. 3 years, Rachel said, since he moved in. 3 years. She said it the way people say things they have said so many times that the words have lost their edges. 3 years of a life Sadie could reconstruct without being told the details, because she had seen the story before, lived adjacent to it, understood its architecture. The man moves in, the door closes. The world outside gets smaller. The bruises get explained. The friends disappear. The family gets pushed away. And then one day the woman realizes that she is standing in a room with no exits, and the man who built the room is standing in the only door. Who is he? Sadie said. Rachel's mouth tightened. She looked around the diner again, at the truckers, at the old couple, at Rex. His name is Dean Mercer, she said. Ms. Dean. Sadie did not know the name, but May did. Sadie saw it from across the room. May had been walking toward them with a plate of food, and she stopped. Not a big stop, not dramatic, just a hitch in her step that lasted less than a second. But Sadie saw it, and she knew that whatever that name meant, it was enough to make a 73-year-old woman who was afraid of nothing pause in her own diner. May set the plate down in front of Rachel. Eat, she said. Then she looked at Sadie, and the look said everything May was not going to say out loud in front of a woman who was already terrified. The look said, this is bad. The look said, this is bigger than you think. Sadie stood up. She walked to the counter where May was already heading, and they stood together behind the coffee machine, speaking in low voices that the rest of the diner could not hear. Dean Mercer, May said. The name came out of her mouth the way you say the name of a disease. He runs distribution for a meth operation that covers 4 counties. His protection comes from 2 places. The money he pays to certain deputies in the sheriff's office, and the fact that the people who might have testified against him have a way of deciding they do not want to testify. She paused. He has a deputy named Haskell who shows up when anyone calls about him. Haskell and Mercer go out on the porch and talk for 10 minutes, and then Haskell leaves and nothing changes. Sadie looked back at Rachel in the booth. The woman had not touched the food. She was staring at the door. She has tried to leave before, Sadie said. It was not a question. May nodded. Everybody in the county hears things. 3 times. First time she called the police. Haskell came. Did nothing. Second time she packed a bag and tried to drive. He caught her before she got to the car. She was in the hospital for 4 days. Told the nurses she fell downstairs. Third time, she made it all the way to her sister's house in Henderson. Mercer sent people. They stood outside the sister's house for 2 days. Did not touch anyone. did not say a word, just stood there. The sister has children. Rachel came back. May's voice was flat. She had been telling other people's stories for 31 years from behind this counter, and she had learned to tell them without breaking because someone in the room needed to be whole. She cannot stay here, May said quietly. If Mercer knows she ran, and he will know, he will come looking. And he will find this place, because there are only so many places on this road, and this is one of them. Where does she go? Sadie said. There is a woman named Evelyn Shaw, retired county social worker, 63 years old. She runs access to a safe house through a church network. No county connection, no digital intake. But Evelyn is 40 minutes away, and that woman is not driving anywhere tonight. And neither am I on these roads. Sadie looked at the parking lot through the window. Rain, darkness, and something else. Something she almost missed. Something she would not have noticed if she had not spent her entire life watching for things that did not belong. A light, not a headlight, not lightning. A small light. A phone screen. In a vehicle parked at the far end of the lot, a vehicle that had not been there 10 minutes ago and that Sadie had not heard pull in over the storm, but that was sitting there now, dark and still, with a single small light inside it that meant someone was making a call or sending a message. Sadie felt the cold in her chest again. Harder this time. May, she said. There is someone in the parking lot. May looked. She did not see what Sadie saw because May's eyes were 73 years old and the lot was dark and the rain was heavy. But May trusted Sadie's eyes the way you trust a person who has given you 11 months of quiet, dependable competence without ever once asking for anything in return. Are you sure? Sadie was sure. She was sure because her body was sure. Because every alarm that had been installed in her by 16 years of learning to read dangerous situations was firing at once. Someone is watching this diner right now, Sadie said. And, whoever they are, they know Rachel is here. May's face changed. Something in her jaw tightened, and something in her eyes went flat. And she reached under the counter, and her hand came to rest on something that Sadie had always suspected was there, but had never confirmed. A Remington 8.7. O-pump action. Shotgun cleaned and loaded, kept below the register, the way some women keep a rolling pin and some women keep something else entirely. I'm going to do something I have not done in 31 years of running this diner, May said. I am going to ask Rex Callahan for help. She did not have to. Rex was already standing. Sadie had not seen him get up. She had not heard the booth creak or his boots hit the floor. But he was there standing at the end of the counter, and he was looking at Sadie with an expression she had never seen on his face before. Not the flat, neutral mask he usually wore. Something alert and focused and cold in a way that was not hostile, but was absolutely not safe. How long has that vehicle been there, he said. His voice was low and rough, like gravel scraped across concrete. Sadie had heard him speak a total of maybe 30 words in 11 months. This was the most complete sentence he had ever directed at her. 10 minutes, she said. Maybe less. It pulled in without headlights. Rex looked at the window. He looked at the parking lot. He looked at the dark shape at the far end of the lot. And Sadie saw his eyes do what her eyes had done. See what did not belong. Process what it meant. The woman, Rex said. He did not look toward Rachel's booth. He did not point or gesture. He kept his eyes on the lot. Who was she running from? Sadie hesitated. It was not her information to give. But Rex was looking at her and waiting, and there was something in the quality of his waiting that told her he already knew the answer and was giving her the chance to confirm it. Dean Mercer, Sadie said. Rex's face did not change. Nothing about him moved. But Sadie, who had spent her life reading people, saw something shift behind his eyes. Not surprise. Something older and deeper and more personal than surprise. How bad, he said. 3 years. She has tried to leave 3 times. He has people in the sheriff's department. Rex was quiet for a moment. Then he picked up his coffee mug from the counter where he had carried it from the booth, and he took a slow sip, and he set it down, and he looked at Sadie, and he said something that changed the entire night. Bring her over here. Let her eat at my table. Leftovers are scraps. She can sit down and eat like a human being. Sadie looked at him. She looked at the booth where his untouched second plate was sitting. The plate that had been sitting there untouched every Friday night for 6 years. The plate that nobody asked about. She understood what he was offering. Not just a meal. The second plate. Danny's plate. The plate that belonged to his ghost. He was giving it to a stranger because the stranger needed it more than the ghost did tonight. Sadie went to Rachel. She knelt beside the booth, and she spoke quietly, and she explained that the man in the corner, the one with the patch and the tattoos, and the face that made most people cross the street, was offering her his table and his food, and that Sadie knew how that sounded, but she needed Rachel to trust her right now. Rachel looked at Rex from across the diner. She looked at Sadie. She picked up her bag of documents, and she followed Sadie to the corner booth, and she sat down across from Rex Callahan, and she looked at the plate of food, and she started crying. Not loud, not dramatic, just tears running down her face and into the mashed potatoes and gravy, while she picked up a fork and ate because she was starving and crying and doing both at the same time, because that is what people do when they have been running on nothing for so long. That the simple act of someone giving them a plate of food without conditions breaks something inside them that they have been holding together with nothing but will. Rex did not look at her while she ate. He looked out the window at the storm and drank his coffee and gave her the 30 seconds that were not his to witness. He was good at that, at giving people the space to fall apart without watching them do it. Sadie stood at the counter and watched the parking lot. The vehicle was still there. The light inside was gone now. That was worse. A light meant someone on the phone. No light meant someone watching, waiting. May, Sadie said. That car. It has been there too long. May came up beside her. I see it now, she said. I see it. Rex heard them. His head turned. How many people inside, he said. I cannot tell. Sadie said, the windows are dark, but the car has not moved and nobody has come inside. Rex set his coffee down. He reached into his vest pocket and pulled out a phone and dialed a number and spoke 3 sentences into it and hung up. Then he dialed another number and spoke 4 more sentences and hung up again. Then he looked at Sadie. What is your name? Sadie. Sadie, I am going to need you to do something for me tonight. You're going to stay in this diner with May, and you're going to watch that parking lot, and you're going to watch every door and every window, and if anything moves that should not move, you're going to tell May immediately. Can you do that? Sadie looked at him. Yes. Have you ever been in a situation where someone's safety depended on you staying calm and paying attention? Every day of my life until I was 18, Sadie said. She said it without thinking. It came out plain and flat and true, and she saw something cross Rex's face that looked like recognition, not pity. Recognition. The look of someone who has been in the same kind of dark and knows what it costs to come out the other side with your eyes still working. Good, he said. Then you already know how to do this. He stood. He picked up his jacket from the booth. He looked at Rachel. Rachel had stopped eating. She was watching him with wide, wet eyes. I am going to your house, Rex said to her. Rachel's face went white. No, you cannot. He will. He will, what Rex said. There was no challenge in his voice, just patience. The patience of a man who has heard every version of that sentence and has already decided it does not change anything. He will kill you, Rachel said. She said it simply, like a fact. That is his choice, Rex said. Right now, I need to know two things. Are there documents in that house that you need? Things you could not fit in that bag. Rachel nodded. My passport is a copy. The original is in his office. And there are financial records. A man named Terrence told me about them. Terrence works for Dean. He said there's a USB drive with everything. Payments to deputies, account numbers, phone records. He said if anyone ever got that drive to the right people. Rex held up one hand. Where in the office? Second desk drawer. Left side. There is a false bottom. Terrence told me about it. I could never get to it because Dean is always. Rex nodded. He turned to May. Keep them safe tonight, he said. He meant Sadie and Rachel. Lock the door, he said to May. Do not open it for anyone you do not know. He looked at Sadie one more time. That car in the lot, he said. If it moves, you call this number. He handed her a piece of paper with a phone number written on it. Ask for Eddie. Tell him where the car goes. Then he walked out into the storm. Sadie stood at the window and watched him cross the parking lot in the rain. She watched him mount his Harley, a machine that looked like it had been through as many hard years as the man who rode it. She watched his headlight cut through the dark and then swing toward the highway. And she watched the dark vehicle at the far end of the lot, and she did not blink, and she did not move, and she barely breathed. Because Sadie Monroe had spent 23 years learning one thing above all else: how to watch, how to see what other people missed, how to stand very still in a dangerous room and notice the thing that was about to go wrong before it went wrong. She had always thought of that skill as a scar, something carved into her by a childhood that should have been different. Tonight, for the first time, she understood that it might be something else. Not a scar, a weapon. And the most dangerous thing about Sadie Monroe was not that she had been invisible her whole life. It was that she had spent her whole life watching from the invisible place. And you cannot hide from someone who has learned to see everything from nowhere. The vehicle in the lot sat for another 6 minutes. Then its lights came on. Not the headlights. The reverse lights. It was backing up, slowly. Turning toward the highway, Sadie grabbed the phone behind the counter and dialed the number Rex had given her. It rang once. A man's voice, rough, alert. Eddie. This is Sadie, she said. I am at May's Diner. The car in the parking lot is moving. It is heading east on Route 14. How many inside? Eddie said. I could see two shapes when the interior light flickered. Two people, plate number. Sadie had written it down 20 minutes ago on a napkin. She had done it automatically without being asked, because that is what you do when you grow up learning that details are the difference between safety and disaster. She read it to Eddie. There was a pause. Then Eddie said something to someone else in the background. Then back to her. Good eyes, kid. Keep watching. Boss is on his way to the house. We are 20 minutes behind him. He hung up. Sadie set the phone down. She looked at May. May was standing behind the counter, with her hand resting on the shotgun. Her face was calm. Her eyes were not. Sadie looked at Rachel in the corner booth. Rachel had finished eating and was sitting very still, with her hands flat on the table and her documents pulled close to her chest like a shield. She was staring at the door again, watching for what she knew was coming. Sadie walked over and sat down across from her in the booth, in Rex's seat. She sat where Rex had been sitting, and she looked at Rachel, and she said something that she had not planned to say and had never said to another person in her life. I know what you are feeling right now, Sadie said. I know exactly what it feels like to be in a place where someone tells you that you are safe and every part of your body says that is a lie, because safety has always been a lie before. Rachel looked at her. I was in the system, Sadie said. Foster care. From the time I was 7, I was in a home where a man did things. Not the same things, but the same kind. And every time someone told me I was safe, I waited for the next thing to happen because the next thing always happened. She paused. I am telling you this because I want you to know that when I say you are safe here tonight, I am not saying it because it is the right thing to say. I am saying it because there is a 73-year-old woman behind that counter with a shotgun and a man on a motorcycle who just rode into a hurricane for you and a girl in this booth who has spent her entire life learning how to see danger before it arrives. And I am watching. I am watching everything. And nothing is getting through that door tonight that I do not see first. Rachel looked at her for a long time, and then slowly, carefully, like a person setting down something they have been gripping so hard their fingers have gone numb, she exhaled. It was not relief. It was not trust. It was something smaller and more fragile than either of those things. It was the first breath a person takes when they allow themselves to consider that maybe just this once the people around them mean what they say. And outside in the Nevada dark, Rex Callahan rode east into the storm, toward a house where a man named Dean Mercer was about to discover that the woman he thought belonged to him had walked out the door. Rex reached the house at 9:41. He killed his headlight 200 yards out and rode the rest by feel. The rain had eased from apocalyptic to merely terrible, and the desert road had turned into something between a river and a memory of solid ground. Behind him, at intervals, he could not see, but could sense the way a man who has ridden with other men for decades senses them. Eddie and Tomas and Garrett followed in the dark. The house sat a quarter mile off the county road, down a dirt track that the storm had turned into mud. It was not what Rex had expected. It was ordinary. A ranch-style house with a covered porch and a light over the front door, and a pickup truck in the gravel drive. The kind of house that looks like every other house on every other dirt road in rural Nevada. The kind of house where neighbors wave and nobody asks what happens after the doors close, because asking is not how things work out here. Rex stopped at the edge of the property. He sat on his idling Harley, and he listened. He heard a voice before he saw anyone. A man's voice. Low and steady and controlled, in a way that made the hair on Rex's neck stand, because a voice that calm in a house where something has gone very wrong means the person speaking has rehearsed this moment many times. It means he has done this before. Means Mercer was already home. Whatever timeline Rachel had been operating on, whatever window she had thought she had, it was gone. Rex turned to Eddie and held up one finger. Wait. He went forward alone. The front door was not fully closed. It had been left open maybe 4 inches. Rex stopped just outside and listened. I told you this was going to happen, Mercer was saying. I told you the first time and the second time, and now here we are, Rachel. Here we are again. Then silence. No second voice. Mercer was talking to an empty room. He was talking to the space where Rachel had been, and Rex understood in that moment that Mercer had come home and found the house empty and was standing in his own living room delivering his speech to nobody. Because the speech was the thing that made him feel in control, and control was the only thing holding his mind together. Rex pushed the door open and walked in. Mercer turned. He was average height, average build, early 40s. A face you would forget 5 minutes after meeting it. The kind of face that disappears in a crowd. That was what made his eyes wrong. The eyes did not belong on that face. They were doing calculations at a speed that was almost visible. He looked at Rex. He looked at the patch on Rex's vest. He looked at the open door and the shapes of Eddie and Tomas and Garrett standing in the dark behind it. For exactly 3 seconds, he ran the numbers. Then he said very calmly, "You are trespassing." "That is probably true," Rex said. "You need to get off my property. I need the woman's documents. Birth certificates, social security cards, passport, second desk drawer left side, false bottom. I will take those and the USB drive, and then we will be leaving." Something shifted behind Mercer's eyes. The mention of the USB drive had landed differently than everything else. That was the thing Mercer had not expected anyone to know about. "I do not know what you think you are talking about," Mercer said. "Payment logs, phone records, names of every deputy on your payroll, and the amounts and the dates. Haskell, Reyes, Polson." Rex used every advantage the room gave him. His size, his voice, the patch on his vest that Mercer had recognized on sight. "You want to call them? Call them. But while we wait for them to drive out here in the storm, I'm going to go to that office and get what I came for." "You are making a very serious mistake," Mercer said. His voice dropped half a register. "Not threatening. Informational. The way a man tells you the stove is hot not because he cares about your hand, but because he wants you to know that what happens next is your own fault." Rex did not respond. He walked past Mercer toward the hallway. Mercer moved to block him, and Rex stopped and looked down at him with an expression that had ended conversations in prison yards. "Do not," Rex said. "One word. Quiet. Final." Mercer looked up at him. The pleasant surface had cracked, and underneath it was something colder and more honest. "You think you are the first man who has tried to be a hero in this story?" Mercer said. "Her sister tried. Her sister's husband tried. You know what happened to them? I do not need to touch you. I have people who handle this kind of situation." "Then you should call them," Rex said. "And while they are on their way, you should think about the fact that I am not her sister's husband. I am the president of the Iron Vultures, and I have 3 men outside your door, and the only reason you're still standing is because I decided to talk first. That can change." Rex held his gaze for 3 full seconds. Then he stepped around Mercer and went down the hall. He found the office. He found the desk. He found the second drawer on the left side. He found the false bottom. He found the USB drive. He found the passport. He found everything Rachel had said would be there, and he put it all in his jacket, and he walked back through the house and past Mercer, who had not moved from the spot. At the door, Rex stopped and turned back. The woman is gone. She is not coming back. And the thing you have been using to keep her here is in my pocket. The people you have been paying to look the other way are about to have a very bad year. You can make this worse, or you can stand still and let it happen. But either way, it is happening. I always come back, Mercer said. His voice was flat. Whatever happens tonight, I come back. I always do. Rex looked at him for a long moment. Maybe, he said. He walked out. He did not make it a mile before his phone rang, a voice he did not recognize. Mr. Callahan, you do not know me. My name is Terrence Webb. I work for Dean Mercer. Rex said nothing. He waited. I know what happened tonight, Terrence said. I know you took Rachel's documents. I know about the drive. I am not calling to threaten you. I am calling because... A pause. The sound of a man crossing a line he cannot uncross. Because I have been wanting someone to do exactly what you did for about 8 months, and I did not have the guts to do it myself. What do you want, Terrence? Dean has already made 2 phone calls. One to Haskell, one to a man named Briggs. Briggs is not law enforcement. He handles things Dean does not want associated with his name. Terrence paused again. Mr. Callahan, I have a daughter. She is 8 years old. I have done things for this man that I cannot undo, but I am not going to be the person who lets him hurt people to get back at someone who did the right thing. Then help me, Rex said. I have a second USB drive, a copy, financial records, payment logs, phone records, names of every deputy and the amounts and the dates. Enough to put Dean away and take down half the county sheriff's department with him. Why have you not used it before now? Because I did not know who to trust. And because I was afraid. His voice broke slightly on the last word, not dramatically. The way a wall cracks from pressure applied too long. I am still afraid. But I am more afraid of what I am becoming. Meet me at May's Desert Stop, Rex said. 20 minutes. He called Sadie next. She answered on the first ring. Her voice was calm and low and focused in a way that Rex noted. Any movement, he said. The car left 20 minutes ago heading east. I called Eddie. He confirmed. 2 people inside. No one else has come near the lot. Rachel is in the booth. May is behind the counter. Everything is quiet. I am 10 minutes out, Rex said. There is a man coming to the diner after me. His name is Terrence Webb. Let him in. He is on our side. How do you know? Because he is afraid, and he called anyway. That is usually enough. Back at the diner, Sadie relayed the information to May and went back to the window. She watched. She watched the lot. She watched the road. She watched the dark space between the diner and the desert where anything could be hiding and nothing was. Yet. Rex arrived first. He came through the door with rain on his jacket and the manila envelope in his hand and something in his face that had not been there when he left. The expression of a man who has set something in motion that cannot be stopped and who understands that the consequences are going to be larger than anyone in this room is ready for. He put the envelope on the table in front of Rachel. She opened it with shaking hands. Her passport, her birth certificate, her social security card. She pressed the passport against her chest and closed her eyes and held it there and did not speak. Sadie brought Rex coffee without being asked. She set it down, and he looked at her, and, for the first time in 11 months of Fridays, something passed between them that was not the transactional silence of a waitress and a customer. It was acknowledgement. He saw her, not the uniform, not the invisible girl behind the counter, her. Thank you, he said. 2 words. The most personal thing he had said to her in 11 months. Sadie nodded and went back to the window. Terrence Webb arrived 17 minutes later. He was a heavy-set man in his mid-40s, with the look of someone who had been promising himself he was going to do the right thing for a long time and had finally run out of road. He stood just inside the door and looked at Rachel, and something in his face collapsed quietly. I am sorry, he said, not to Rex, to her. I am so sorry. I knew what he was doing for 3 years, and Rachel did not let him finish. Fix it, she said. Not unkindly, just final. Like a door being closed gently but completely. Terrence put the USB drive on the counter. Rex picked it up and turned it over in his fingers. Small, thumb-sized, enough to bring down an empire built on silence. Who do we give this to? Rex asked. Not local law, Terrence said. Haskell has people in the county DA's office too. It needs to go state or federal. There is a detective at the State Criminal Investigation Division. Name is Harmon. I have had his number for 6 months. Got it from a public defender who told me if I ever wanted to talk, Harmon was the one to call. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a business card. Bent. Worn at the edges. The way something gets when it has been taken out and looked at many times, and then put back without dialing. I never called, Terrence said. I could not make myself. He set the card on the counter next to Rex's hand. I am ready to testify to everything. My name, my involvement, dates, amounts, all of it. I will lose everything. My job, my house, whatever protection being close to Dean gave me. He paused, but my daughter is 8 years old. And last month she asked me what I do for work. And for the first time in her life, I could not answer her. I opened my mouth and nothing came out. Because every answer I had was a lie, and she was looking at me the way children look at their fathers when they still believe their fathers are good. And I knew right then that I had a window, a small one, where she was still young enough that if I changed now, she might remember me as the man who fixed it instead of the man who let it happen. The diner was very quiet. The coffee machine made its sound. The rain drummed on the roof. And Sadie, standing at the window, felt something shift in her chest that she had not expected. Because she recognized what Terrence was describing. She recognized the window. She had watched it close on every adult who had ever been in a position to help her when she was a child. Every foster parent who saw the signs and looked away. Every social worker who filed the paperwork and moved on. Every teacher who noticed the bruises and accepted the excuses. Terrence Webb was standing in that window right now, and he was not looking away. Rex called the number on Harmon's card at 11:38. He expected voicemail. He got a human being on the second ring, wide awake, in the way of someone accustomed to calls at bad hours. Harmon. My name is Rex Callahan. I am going to assume that name means something to you, even if we have never spoken. A pause. I know who you are, Mr. Callahan. Then you know I am not someone who calls state CID for fun. I have a USB drive with financial records documenting 3 years of payments from a man named Dean Mercer to 3 deputies in the county sheriff's office and at least one individual in the county DA's office. I also have a witness willing to testify. And I have a woman who is not safe until Mercer is in custody. Where are you right now? Rex told him. Do not move. Do not let anyone leave. I am 4 hours out, but I will have a deputy I trust there in 90 minutes. Mr. Callahan, is everyone safe? Rex looked at the booth where Rachel was sitting. He looked at May behind the counter. He looked at Sadie at the window, her reflection faint in the glass, still watching. For right now, Rex said. That will have to be enough, Harmon said. 90 minutes. Rex hung up and looked at Sadie. 90 minutes, he said. That is how long we need to hold. Sadie nodded. She went back to the window. But Mercer did not wait 90 minutes. He did not wait 30. At 12:14, Sadie saw the first set of headlights on the county road. Then a second. Then a third. 3 vehicles moving in formation, spaced evenly, the kind of spacing that is not accidental. 3 vehicles, Sadie said. Her voice cut through the diner clean and sharp. Coming from the north, moving slow. Rex was on his feet. Eddie was at the back door. Thomas had his phone out. May had the shotgun on the counter. Not hidden, visible. A statement. How many people, Rex said. Sadie pressed her face closer to the glass. She counted shapes in the headlights as the vehicles turned into the lot. 6, she said. At least. Could be more. Rex called Walsh Harmon's trusted deputy. Walsh, how far out? 32 minutes. That is not fast enough. He told Walsh what was happening. Walsh said, I am making the call right now. Even compromised deputies do not want to show up to a scene where civilians were hurt. It will slow Mercer down, if nothing else. Rex hung up and looked at Eddie. I need you to step outside the front door. Stand there. Just stand there and let them see you. Eddie put on his jacket, straightened his patch, walked out the front door into the rain, and stood on the concrete like a man who was not afraid of anything in that parking lot and wanted every person in every vehicle to know it. 30 seconds of nothing. While they waited, Sadie did something no one asked her to do. She took a napkin and drew a map of the parking lot. 3 vehicles. Positions. Angles. Lines of sight from the diner windows. She marked where the streetlight was. She marked where the dead zones were. She put the napkin on the counter in front of Rex without a word. Rex looked at it. He looked at her. He picked up the napkin and studied it, and then he made 2 phone calls based on what she had drawn. Then, Rex's phone rang. Unknown number. That is a nice gesture, Mercer said. Very dramatic. But you are 4 people against 6, and I have been doing this a lot longer than you have. I have a state CID detective on the phone and a deputy on the way, Rex said, and a witness inside this building who just decided to testify to everything your operation has done in the last 3 years. You want to storm a diner with 6 people and add a federal obstruction charge to everything else that is about to land on you tonight. That is your choice. Mercer was quiet. Then he said one name. Terrence. His voice had changed. The control had fractured in exactly one place, and what came through was something raw. He is in there. He is. I trusted him. He trusted you too, Rex said. For a long time. He is done now. The silence stretched. Then Mercer spoke again, and his voice had gone cold and flat in a way that was genuinely dangerous because it no longer sounded like anger. It sounded like arithmetic. You win tonight. I come back. I always come back. Rex hung up and stood at the window and watched. The headlights sat for 41 seconds. He counted. Then they moved, not toward the diner, away, back down the service road, back to the county road, pulling out and disappearing around the bend. The lot was empty. Eddie came back inside. He looked at Rex. They left. For now, Rex said. Sadie was still at the window. She had not moved during the entire exchange. One of the vehicles turned south at the county road, she said. The other two went east. The one going south had a cracked tail light on the left side. Rex looked at her for a long moment. Then he said something she did not expect. You see everything he said. It was not a question. But what happened next, Sadie did not see coming. Because she had been watching the parking lot and the road in the front of the building. She had not been watching the back. At 12:41, the handle on the back door moved. Not hard. Not a kick or a slam. Just the handle turning slowly, the way it turns when someone is testing whether it is locked. May saw it first because May was behind the counter facing that direction. Her hand found the shotgun and she lifted it to her shoulder with the ease of a woman who had grown up around firearms and never unlearned the language. The handle turned again, then stopped. Then Sadie heard something she had not expected. A scraping sound. Metal on metal. Someone was working the lock. Sadie moved. She dropped below the counter line and went through the kitchen door on her hands and knees. From the kitchen, she could see the back door through the service window. She could see the deadbolt. It was still engaged. The scraping had stopped. Then, the door shook. Once. Twice. Someone was putting their shoulder into it, not hard enough to break it. May's diner was old construction and built to last, but hard enough to make a point. Then silence. Sadie pressed herself against the kitchen wall. Through the gap between the door and the frame, she could see a strip of the back alley. Rain, gravel, and boots, military-style boots, standing 2 feet from the door. The boots turned, started walking along the wall, toward the kitchen window, Sadie's window. She flattened herself against the wall. The boots stopped. She could hear breathing. Someone was looking through the window into the kitchen, looking for movement, looking for people. Sadie did not move. She did not breathe. She became what she had always been in moments like this. Nothing. Empty space. A girl who was not there. The boots moved on, around the corner of the building, gone. May's voice from the front, rack of the shotgun. The sound that has ended more conversations than any sentence in the English language. Sadie stood up. She moved to the kitchen window and looked out. She saw him. Briggs. She recognized the military posture, the way he carried himself like a weapon, even when his hands were empty. He was walking back toward the front of the building. He turned the corner, and he looked through the front window, and Sadie was standing in the kitchen doorway, and their eyes met through 2 panes of glass and 20 feet of diner. He saw her face. Sadie saw the moment it happened, the way his eyes narrowed, the way his head tilted slightly, cataloging, filing, Memorizing. 2 seconds. That was all it took. 2 seconds, and Sadie Monroe was no longer invisible to the one person she most needed to be invisible to. Then, May's voice came from behind the counter, loud enough to carry through the wall. I have not called the police yet. That word yet is the only gift I am giving you tonight. Briggs held Sadie's eyes for one more second. Then he turned and walked across the parking lot and got into a truck that had been parked in the dead zone behind the dumpster, the one spot Sadie had not been able to see from the front window, and he drove away. Sadie stood in the kitchen doorway, and her hands were shaking, not with weakness, with the specific physical aftermath of being seen by someone who intends to find you again. Walsh arrived 22 minutes later. Compact man, mid-40s, state CID badge. The flat, professional manner of someone who had seen enough that very little surprised him anymore. He came through the front door alone, hands visible. He sat at the counter and took in the room without comment. USB drive goes in here, Walsh said. He produced a padded evidence envelope. Chain of custody starts now. He looked at Terrence. You are the witness. Yes. Are you prepared to give a formal statement tonight? Terrence reached into his jacket and put the second drive on the counter. The copy. The insurance. I have been prepared for 8 months, he said. I just needed to get out of my own way. Walsh took both drives. He sealed the envelopes. The night stretched. Terrence gave a recorded statement that lasted 90 minutes. Names, dates, amounts. Deputies, the individual in the DA's office, timestamps, account numbers, a private email chain saved to the second drive. Walsh looked at that second drive. You have had this the whole time, he said. Yes. Why 2 drives? Because one is the evidence, Terrence said, and one is insurance in case someone took the first one and buried it. He looked at his hands. I have been operating in bad faith for a long time. You learn to plan for betrayal. Harmon arrived by 2 in the morning. Rumpled jacket. Coffee cup. The energy of someone running on the fuel of a case finally cracking open. By 3:15, a warrant for Mercer's arrest was moving through a judge Harmon trusted. Judge Calloway signed it before dawn. At 4 in the morning, Rex arranged for Rachel and Sadie to be moved to a safe house, a private facility run through a church network by Evelyn Shaw, a retired county social worker who had spent 26 years watching systems fail the women they were supposed to protect, and who had spent the years since building something that worked outside those systems. No county connection, no digital intake, a door that opened when everything else was closed. Walsh drove them. Rachel sat in the back seat with her documents in her lap and both hands pressed flat against her thighs like she was holding herself to the earth. Sadie sat beside her and watched the road behind them through the rear window, counting headlights, noting distances, filing everything. Rachel spoke for the first time since they left the diner. She did not look at Sadie. She looked at her own hands. I told myself I would never try again, Rachel said. After the third time, when I came back from Henderson, I told myself that was it, that leaving was not possible, that I would die in that house, and that was the way it was going to be. Sadie said nothing. She waited. Then, last week, Terrence came to me. He came to the house when Dean was out, and he said he had something. He said he had been building it for 8 months. A record. Everything Dean had done. Everyone he had paid. He said if I could get out, if I could get to someone who was not part of it, there was a chance. A real one. She paused. I told myself I would not hope. I have been punished for hoping too many times, but I packed a bag. I hid it in the closet. I told myself if the moment came, I would walk through the door and I would not look back. The moment came, Sadie said. Rachel finally looked at her. The moment came, she said, and I walked. They arrived at the safe house at 4:30. It was a plain building on a quiet road, set back from the county line. Evelyn Shaw met them at the door. She was a small woman with short gray hair and reading glasses on a chain around her neck, and the steady presence of someone who has opened this door many times for women who look exactly like Rachel. Evelyn showed them to a room with two beds and a window that looked out on the desert. Clean sheets, a lamp that worked, a lock on the inside of the door. The kind of details that most people would not notice, but that Rachel touched one by one as she entered the room. The lock, the latch, the window checking each one, the way a person checks the exits on an airplane, because when your survival has depended on knowing your escapes, you never stop counting them. Sadie watched her do it and felt something she did not expect. Not sadness, kinship. She had done the same thing in every room she had ever entered, every foster home, every motel, every shelter. Checking the locks, counting the exits, measuring the distance to the door. Rachel lay down on the bed and was asleep in minutes. Not the gradual drift of someone relaxing into rest, the sudden drop of someone whose body had finally been given permission to stop, like a machine being turned off. Sadie sat in the chair by the window. She did not sleep. She watched the parking lot, she watched the road, and she thought about Briggs, about those 2 seconds at the kitchen window, about the way his eyes had narrowed. He had seen her face. He knew what she looked like. And when Mercer's people started searching, they would have her description, and anyone near her would be findable. Sadie sat in that chair, and she thought about what it meant to be visible. For 23 years, invisibility had been her armor, the thing that kept her alive, the thing that kept her moving from town to town without anyone noticing she had arrived or noticing she had gone. And now that armor was gone, stripped away in 2 seconds by a man who memorizes faces. She thought about Rachel sleeping on the bed. She thought about Evelyn down the hall. She thought about the fact that her face was now a trail that led here, to this room, to these people, to the only safe place Rachel had. And then Sadie Monroe made the hardest decision of her life. Harder than leaving any foster home. Harder than sleeping in the van for the first time. Harder than walking into May's Diner 11 months ago and asking for a job she did not think she would get. She decided to leave. She waited until 4:30 when Evelyn had dozed off in the kitchen chair. She wrote a note on a piece of paper from the desk and left it on the bed where Rachel would find it. The note said 4 words. He saw my face. She eased the side window open because the front door had a chime that Evelyn had set. She dropped 5 feet to the gravel below and landed softly the way a girl who had climbed out of foster home windows at night learns to land. Quiet, practiced, automatic. Then she started walking, not away from the danger, toward it. Sadie Monroe walked 3 miles in the dark before the sun came up. She did not have a plan. She had something older than a plan. She had the instinct of a person who has spent her entire life reading danger and who understands that the best way to survive a predator is not to run from it, but to know exactly where it is at all times. She knew where Mercer would go. She knew because she understood men like Dean Mercer the way you understand weather when you have lived outside long enough. You learn the patterns. You learn what comes before the storm. A man who has lost control of something he believes belongs to him does not retreat. He does not regroup. He goes to the last place he saw the thing he lost and works outward from there. Rachel had been treated at St. Catherine's Hospital twice in 3 years. Once for a dislocated shoulder she told the intake nurse came from falling downstairs. Once for bruised ribs she said came from a car accident. Both times the hospital had filed the paperwork. Both times a social worker had been notified. Both times nothing had happened because the system that was supposed to protect Rachel Steele had been built by the same county that Dean Mercer owned. If Mercer was looking for Rachel, he would check the hospital. Not because he thought she was there, because the hospital had records, intake forms, emergency contacts, addresses, the breadcrumb trail of a woman suffering preserved in filing cabinets that a man with the right connections could access in minutes. Sadie reached the county road as the first gray light appeared on the eastern horizon. She flagged down a trucker heading west. He was a big man with kind eyes and a cab that smelled like coffee, and he did not ask her why a 23-year-old girl was walking alone on a desert highway before dawn. He just said where to, and she said St. Catherine's Hospital, and he nodded and drove. She arrived at 6:12. The hospital was a low, sprawling building on the edge of Millerton. Sadie went in through the main entrance where a volunteer at the front desk was reading a newspaper and barely looked up. She found a chair in the main lobby with a clear line of sight to the emergency room corridor and the front entrance. She sat down, she took out her phone, she opened the camera, she waited. At 6:51, a black SUV pulled into the emergency room lot. Two men got out. Sadie recognized what they were before she recognized who. The way they moved, the way they scanned the lot, the way one held the door for the other and then turned to watch the parking lot while his partner went inside. These were not men who had come for medical attention. The first one was tall and lean with a military haircut. Briggs. Sadie felt something cold lock into place in her chest. This was the man from the kitchen window. The man who had seen her face. The second one stayed outside by the SUV. Shorter. Heavier. A phone in his hand. Cole. Sadie sat very still. She raised her phone. She pressed record. She filmed Briggs as he walked down the corridor toward the emergency department. She filmed him as he approached the reception desk and spoke to the nurse. She could not hear what he said, but she watched his body language. The way he leaned forward, the way he placed both hands flat on the counter, the way the nurse's face changed from professional courtesy to something careful and guarded. She filmed all of it. Then she called Rex. He answered on the second ring. His voice was rough with exhaustion. "Where are you?" he said. "St. Catherine's Hospital. Briggs is here. He just walked into the emergency department. Cole is outside in a black SUV. They are looking for Rachel's records." Rex was quiet for 1 second. Then the sound of movement. Fast. How long has he been inside? 4 minutes. Are you safe? Can he see you? No. I am in the main lobby. He walked right past me. A pause. Sadie. Listen to me. Do not move. Do not let him see you. I am 30 minutes out. Walsh is closer. I am calling him now. There is something else, Sadie said. I have been filming. Video of him entering the hospital and approaching the emergency desk. If he accesses Rachel's records, or threatens anyone in that department, it will be on camera. Rex was quiet, longer this time. When he spoke, his voice had shifted. The way a voice changes when someone understands they have been underestimating something. Good, he said. Keep filming. Keep your distance. I am coming. Sadie kept the phone recording. She watched Briggs emerge from the emergency corridor 7 minutes later. His face was tight. Whatever he had found or not found had not satisfied him. He pulled out his phone and made a call. He was agitated. His free hand making short, sharp gestures, reporting to someone. The report was not good news. Then he turned. He walked back toward the main entrance, toward the lobby, toward Sadie. She did not panic. She lowered her phone to her lap. She kept it recording, angled upward, capturing his approach without the screen being visible. She looked at the floor. She became what she had always been. Small. Quiet. Nobody. Briggs walked past her, 3 feet away. Close enough that she could smell his cologne. Something expensive and wrong for a hospital at 6 in the morning. He did not look at her. He did not break stride. He pushed through the front entrance and got in the SUV, and Cole started the engine. Sadie exhaled. She had not realized she had been holding her breath. She watched the SUV pull out and turn east on the county road. She watched until it was gone. Then she stood up on legs that were shaking because the adrenaline was leaving her body all at once, and the aftermath of being 3 feet from the man who had memorized her face was hitting her like a wall. She went to the bathroom. She locked the door. She sat on the floor with her back against the wall, and she shook for 2 minutes. She allowed herself that. 2 minutes. Then she stood up and washed her face and looked at herself in the mirror. The girl looking back at her was thin and tired and wearing a diner uniform that smelled like coffee and rain and had not slept in over 20 hours. But she also looked like something she had never seen in her own reflection before. She looked like someone who had made a choice. Someone who had walked into a hospital and sat 3 feet from danger and filmed it and stayed calm because the things she had always used to survive, the watching, the seeing, the invisible place, had turned out to be the most valuable weapon anyone had tonight. She left the bathroom. She went back to the lobby. She sat down. She waited for Rex. But Rex did not arrive first. At 7:22, a man came through the emergency room entrance from the side that connected to the ambulance bay. Not the main entrance, not the front. The side door that only someone who had been to this hospital many times would know about. Someone who had brought a woman here twice and signed the insurance forms and talked to the nurses and walked these corridors enough to know which doors were watched and which were not. Sadie saw him at the same moment he saw her, 20 feet apart. Their eyes met with the electricity of 2 people recognizing each other simultaneously, not because they had met before, because they each understood instantly what the other one was. He was smaller in daylight than she had imagined. Ordinary. The kind of man you would forget 5 minutes after meeting him. But the eyes did not belong on that face. They were doing calculations at a speed Sadie could almost see. Who is she? Why is she here? Why does she have a phone in her hand? What does she know? Sadie stood up. Her body made the decision before her mind did. She turned and walked toward the main entrance with the phone in her hand, still recording because her thumb had found the button and muscle memory had done the rest. She heard his footsteps behind her. Not running. Walking fast. The pace of a man who does not want to cause a scene, but is not going to let the girl with the phone leave. She pushed through the entrance. The morning air hit her face. Cold, clean. The parking lot was half empty. A nurse getting out of her car 50 feet away. Not close enough to matter. Sadie turned left, toward the stairwell entrance on the side of the building. She did not know why she chose that direction, except that it was away from the open lot and toward walls and doors and corners. Architecture a girl who had grown up hiding could use. She heard the door open behind her again. Mercer's voice. Not shouting. Measured. Stop. I just want to talk. Sadie did not stop. She reached the stairwell door and pulled it open and went through it, and the door closed behind her with a heavy metallic sound that echoed up through the concrete shaft. She went up. 1 flight, 2, 3. She tried the 3rd floor door. Locked. Card access only. She looked up. 1 more flight. The roof access door had a push bar with a sign that read, "Alarm will sound." Sadie hit it. The alarm screamed through the stairwell behind her. That was exactly what she wanted. Noise meant attention. Attention meant witnesses. Witnesses meant Mercer could not do what he had come to do without the entire hospital knowing. She pushed through onto the roof, full sun. The Nevada sky enormous and pale above her. The desert stretching out in every direction. The parking lot below. The county road beyond it. She turned around. She held up her phone. She pressed her back against the rooftop railing, and she faced the door, and she waited. Mercer came through it 15 seconds later. The alarm was still screaming below them. He stopped when he saw her. He stopped because she was not running. She was standing still with her phone raised and her back straight and her eyes on him, and something in her posture that was completely different from what he had expected to find. She was not afraid. Or she was, but it did not matter, because the fear was not driving her anymore. Something else was. Something harder and older than fear. The thing that happens when a person who has been invisible their entire life decides that being seen is worth whatever comes next. I have been filming you since you walked into this hospital, Sadie said. Her voice came out steady. Steadier than she had any right to after 20 hours without sleep and 2 minutes shaking on a bathroom floor. I have video of Briggs in the emergency department. I have video of you coming through the ambulance bay entrance. And right now, I have video of you standing on this roof looking at me while an alarm goes off in a public hospital. So decide what you want to do next. Because the whole building knows someone is up here. Mercer looked at her. He looked at the phone. He looked at the roof around them. Who are you? He said. Nobody, Sadie said. I am the girl who washes dishes at May's Diner. I am the girl who lives in a van in the parking lot. I have been invisible my entire life. You walked past me in the lobby 30 minutes ago and did not even see me? Nobody ever sees me. She paused. But I see everything. And I've seen enough tonight to make sure you never hurt Rachel Steele or anyone else again. Mercer took 1 step toward her. Then he stopped. Because something had changed behind him. The sound of the stairwell door opening. The sound of boots on concrete. Heavy. Fast. The sound of a man who has ridden 30 minutes at 100 miles an hour on a motorcycle with a cracked rib and come up 4 flights of stairs without stopping. Rex Callahan came through the roof access door, and he put himself between Sadie and Mercer. Not dramatic, not performative, just there. Solid and certain and final. Mercer looked at Rex. I've been a lot of things in my life, Rex said. His voice was low, tired, honest in a way that only exhaustion makes possible. Most of them not good. But I have never hurt a woman or a child, and I have never walked away from a man who did. Mercer's face changed. The calculation stopped. What came through was something personal and raw. You took everything from me, he said. You came into my house, and you took my family, and you turned my own people against me. She was never yours, Rex said. She was never property. She was a person who was afraid of you. And the fact that you cannot tell the difference between fear and love is the reason you are standing on this roof with nothing left. Below them, the sound of vehicles, doors opening. Walsh's voice carrying up through the morning air giving orders. Law enforcement arriving at a scene they had been directed to by someone who knew exactly where to send them. Mercer heard it. He knew what it meant. He looked at the edge of the roof. He looked at Rex. He looked at Sadie. And Sadie saw the moment he broke. She saw it the way she saw everything. In the details. The way his shoulders dropped half an inch. The way his hands opened from fists to flat. The way his eyes went from calculating to something emptier. The face of a man who has run out of moves and is experiencing for the first time what it feels like to be the person in the room with no exit. Walsh came through the roof door with 2 state troopers behind him. Handcuffs. Miranda rights. The sound of a man being taken into custody. Sadie lowered her phone. She stopped recording. She looked at Rex. He was leaning against the rooftop railing with his hand pressed to his side, where the cracked rib was making every breath an argument he was not winning. He was looking at her with something in his expression she had not seen before. You walked out of the safe house, he said. He saw my face. If I stayed, I put Rachel and Evelyn in danger. So you came to the hospital alone. No weapon, no backup. Just a phone. I have been alone my whole life. I know how to do it. That does not mean it is a good idea. No. But it is the idea I had. And it worked. Rex looked at her for a long moment, then the corner of his mouth moved, and something in his eyes shifted. Close enough to a smile from a man who did not do smiles. Yeah, he said. It worked. Walsh drove Sadie back to the safe house. She slept for 14 hours. When she woke up, Rachel was sitting in the chair beside her bed, and the room was full of afternoon light. And for several seconds, Sadie did not know where she was, because she had not slept in a bed in a room that someone else was watching over since she was a child. Rachel told her what had happened. Mercer was in federal custody pending transfer. The state senator, whose name Harmon had not been able to say over an open line, had issued a preemptive statement through his lawyer that morning. A statement that said nothing while confirming everything. Haskell and 2 other deputies had been suspended. The county DA's office was undergoing an independent review. The video Sadie had filmed was in federal evidence. It is over, Rachel said. Walsh told me. The federal case is too far along. The testimony is too specific. It does not get buried. Sadie sat up in bed. She looked at Rachel. Rachel looked different. Not physically. The bruises were still there, but her eyes had changed. The hunted quality was fading. Something else was replacing it. The beginning of what a person looks like when they start to believe the door behind them has finally closed. 4 months passed. They moved the way consequential things move when the machinery of justice is working. Slowly, deliberately, with a weight that builds rather than diminishes. Mercer was denied bail at his federal arraignment. The senator resigned in November. No criminal charges yet, but the federal investigation was building, and his resignation statement was the kind of careful document that said nothing while confirming everything. Deputy Haskell and 2 others were suspended pending investigation. The individual Terrence had named in the DA's office resigned the week the review was announced. Terrence Webb testified for 6 days. He wore the same suit every day and answered every question directly and completely and without flinching. His daughter sat in the back of the courtroom on the last day, and when he stepped down from the witness stand, she was the first person he looked at. She was 8 years old, and she did not understand everything that had happened, but she understood that her father had stood up in front of a room full of people and told the truth, and that the truth had cost him something, and that he had paid it anyway. That was enough for now. The rest she would understand when she was older. Rachel Steele found a job, office administration. An hour's drive each way, which she said she did not mind because she had a car of her own for the first time in 3 years, and she intended to use it. She rented an apartment. Small, clean, hers. She put a lock on the door that only she had the key to, and the first night she slept there, she checked it 4 times, and by the end of the first month, she checked it twice, and by the end of the second month, she checked it once, and that was enough. Sadie Monroe did not go back to the van. May would not allow it. May said it plainly. "You are done sleeping in that parking lot. There is a room above this diner. It has a bed and a window and a door that locks, and you are going to live in it. And if you argue with me, I'm going to be very annoyed, and I promise you do not want that." Sadie did not argue. She moved her things, which fit in one garbage bag, into the room above the diner. It had a bed and a window and a door that locked. It had a small kitchen and a bathroom and a view of the desert that went on forever. It was the first room Sadie had ever lived in that she did not share with anyone, and that no one could take from her. May promoted her from dishwasher to waitress, then from waitress to assistant cook. It turned out that Sadie, who had spent her life watching, had been watching May cook for 11 months and had absorbed more than either of them realized. She knew the timing of the grill. She knew the temperature of the oil. She knew how May seasoned the chicken fried steak and made the gravy and rolled the pie crust and checked the biscuits by sound rather than by timer. Sadie was not a natural cook the way some people are. She was a learned one. She had learned by watching from the invisible place, and the things she had learned were precise and complete in the way that things learned by observation rather than instruction tend to be. You miss less when nobody knows you are paying attention. Rex Callahan came to the diner every Friday night. Same booth, same time, 8 o'clock sharp. He still ordered 2 plates. He still ate one, but the second plate no longer sat untouched. He began leaving it at the counter for Sadie. He never said anything about it. He just left it there, and Sadie took it to the kitchen and ate it, and neither of them discussed it because some things are better left as what they are rather than explained into something smaller. Rex put money into Evelyn Shaw's fund. A lot of money. Evelyn called him about the first contribution and said, "Rex, this is too much." And he said, "It is enough." And she said, "I do not want you to feel obligated." And he said, "Evelyn put it to work." The second contribution was larger. The third was larger still. He and May started a weekly dinner at the diner. Free. Open to anyone. No questions asked. You walked in, you sat down, you ate like a human being. It was not a charity, it was not a program, it was a table with food on it, and a door that was open, and a woman behind the counter who had been feeding people for 31 years, and a man in the corner booth who understood from personal experience what it meant to be hungry and alone, and to have someone slide a plate towards you without conditions. Sadie ran the Friday dinners. She took orders. She poured coffee. She learned the names of the regulars. There was Walter, who was 78 and whose wife had died in March, and who came every Friday because the diner was the only place where someone said his name out loud. There was Linda, who was 64 and on disability and who ate slowly and always took a piece of pie home wrapped in a napkin. There was a young man named James who never said where he came from or where he was going, but who showed up every Friday at 7:45 and sat at the counter and ate everything put in front of him and left without a word. Sadie did not ask James questions. She knew what it looked like when someone needed to eat more than they needed to talk. She watched them all. She saw them. That was the thing about Sadie Monroe. She had always seen people. The difference was that now they saw her back. Rex received a letter on a Tuesday in February. Handwritten, plain paper, postmarked Portland, Oregon. He found it in the stack of garage invoices and recognized the handwriting on the envelope in the way that you recognize handwriting you have not seen in 15 years, because some patterns are too specific to forget. His daughter, Claire, 29 years old, living a life in Portland that he knew nothing about because he had burned his way out of it before she had the chance to know him. He sat on the workbench in his garage. He looked at the letter for a long time without opening it. His hands, which had been steady on a hospital rooftop with a dangerous man 10 feet away, were not steady now. The letter was 3 paragraphs. Claire had never been someone who used more words than required. She had gotten that from him, which was one of the pieces of himself he had passed on that he had not managed to ruin. She wrote that she had heard about October. She did not say how, but someone had talked because someone always talks. And in the counties where it happened, people had been talking about Rex and May's diner and a girl who filmed a drug lord on a hospital roof since the week it happened. She wrote that she had spent 3 months deciding whether to write. She wrote one sentence near the end that Rex read 3 times. "Maybe you are not the man I thought you were," he called her that night. The phone rang 4 times. His whole chest was locked. On the 5th ring, a voice. Female. Careful. "Hello, Claire," he said. His voice came out steady, which surprised him. "It is your father." A silence. Not hostile, not warm. The silence of a person absorbing something they have been both dreading and waiting for. "I know," she said. "I am not going to try to explain 15 years on a phone call. I am not that stupid. But I wanted to call. I should have called a long time ago." "I am not ready to," she started. "I am not asking you to be ready for anything," Rex said. "I just needed you to know that I am sorry. And that I am still here. If there is ever a time when you want to. I am not going anywhere." Claire was quiet for a long time. Then she said one word. "Okay." That one word carrying everything a person can put into a syllable that is not yet yes, but is no longer no. They talked for 11 more minutes. She asked about the garage. He asked about Portland. It was the conversation of 2 strangers who share the same blood. Careful, a little awkward, and not nothing. On the last Friday of February, Rex Callahan walked into May's desert stop at 8 o'clock sharp. He sat in his corner booth. He ordered his meal. May brought it out and went back to the counter. And Sadie was in the kitchen finishing a batch of biscuits. She had flour on her hands, and her hair was pulled back, and she was humming something she did not recognize because it had come from somewhere inside her that she had not had access to before October. She brought Rex his coffee. She set it down. She turned to go back to the kitchen, and Rex said her name. Sadie. She turned back. He was looking at the second plate. Danny's plate. The plate that had been sitting in that booth every Friday for 6 years as a meal for a ghost and a monument to a guilt he had decided he deserved to carry. He looked at the plate. He looked at Sadie. And he slid it across the table to the empty seat across from him. Danny's plate, he said. His voice was rough, rougher than usual. He would have wanted you to have it. Sadie looked at the plate. She looked at Rex. She understood what he was offering. Not just food, not just a seat. He was offering the place that had belonged to the person he had failed to protect. The person he had carried in that untouched plate for 6 years, because carrying it was the only thing he could still do for someone he could no longer reach. He was giving her that place because she had done the thing he had not done for Danny. She had stayed. She had watched. She had put herself between danger and the people who needed protecting, and she had not left. She had been invisible her whole life. And when the moment came, she had chosen to be seen, and it had cost her everything she had, and it had been enough. Sadie sat down. She picked up a fork. She ate. And Rex drank his coffee and looked out the window at the Nevada dark. And for the first time in 6 years, the booth was full and the plate was not wasted, and the ghost had been replaced by something living and present and real. May watched from behind the counter. She did not say anything. She did not need to. She had been running this diner for 31 years, and she understood that some moments explain themselves. Rex's phone buzzed. A text from Claire. Short, no punctuation. The kind of text a person sends fast before they can stop themselves. Next time you are in Portland, maybe we could get coffee. Rex read it. He put the phone in his pocket. He looked at Sadie across the booth. He did not say anything. He did not need to. And outside in the Nevada dark, the desert stretched on in every direction. Vast, indifferent, ancient. The same desert that had swallowed 8 miles of a woman's desperate walking on a stormy October night. The same desert that held the road to Portland, where a daughter was deciding whether to let her father back in. The same desert where a diner sat on the shoulder of a highway with its lights on and its door open and food on the table for anyone who walked through it. Some people spend their whole lives waiting for someone to see them. And the ones who are finally seen never forget who looked. And neither does anyone who was watching. Sadie Monroe had spent 23 years being invisible. And it turned out that the most powerful thing she ever did was stand on a rooftop in the morning sun and let herself be seen. Not because she was brave, though she was. Not because she was angry, though she had every right to be. But because somewhere between a diner counter and a hospital stairwell, she had realized that the opposite of invisible is not famous. The opposite of invisible is known. And being known, truly known by even one person who sees you clearly and stays anyway, is the thing that makes every other thing survivable. Rex Callahan understood that. He had spent 54 years learning it the hard way. And when he slid that plate across the table on a Friday night in February, He was not feeding a ghost anymore. He was feeding the future. And the future picked up a fork and ate like a human being. And that was enough. That was more than enough. That was everything.